Hello and welcome to Likhawat. I'm Gautam Chaube, your host, and this is a show about the books of Bharat. From Plato to Vyas, poets and philosophers have tried answering a set of questions that have baffled mankind since time immemorial. What shall we do? How shall we live? The simplest of questions, but perhaps the most difficult ones to answer. Now imagine meeting a person who, through her grounded wisdom, humility, and her simple stories, offers answers to these existential puzzles, answers that are relatable and humane. Our guest today is widely loved and recognized for doing just that. It is my great pleasure to welcome to the studios of Likhawat, Srimati Sudha Murty ji.
Sudha Murty is a renowned author, philanthropist, and educator who has made significant contributions to the literary and social spheres of India. Born in Shiggaon, Karnataka, she is the chairperson of the Infosys Foundation and has authored numerous books, including novels, short stories, and non-fiction works. Murty's writings often reflect her keen observation of Indian society, its values, and the challenges faced by individuals in a swiftly changing world. Her works, such as Wise and Otherwise, The Day I Stopped Drinking Milk, and How I Taught My Grandmother to Read, have captivated readers with their insightful narratives and relatable characters. As a philanthropist, Murty has been instrumental in supporting various social welfare initiatives, particularly in the fields of education, healthcare, and rural development. Her dedication to uplifting the underprivileged and promoting education has earned her numerous accolades, including the Padma Bhushan in 2023.
Ma'am, welcome to the show.
Namaste.
Ma'am, you have over 300 titles to your credit, with a repertoire that includes travelogues, short stories, non-fiction, children's literature, even technical books. And you also write in both English and Kannada. So for a writer who is so diverse and so prolific, what is her first experience? What is her first memory of reading a book?
Well, I grew up in a village, and fortunately, in that village, there was no electricity and water. In a way, fortunately, because there was no digital media to distract us.
Right.
The only entertainment we had in those days was reading a book. And I come from a teacher's family where books are very, very important. So I grew up with books, and that is in a small village. And my first book, maybe if I am not mistaken, maybe a Mahabharata or Ramayana, because that was available in a home library. That's what I remember.
That's your first memory. As a writer, you are immensely loved and admired in this country. You're read by children, by adults, by people seeking motivation. When you set out to become a writer, when you decided that I'm going to write a book, who were you writing for? Who was your imagined reader?
No, I never wrote for somebody. From the beginning, I write because I enjoy. It is a great joy for me to write. It is my expression of my emotion. It may be when I am in a happy occasion, sad occasion, anxiety, anything is there. When I write, I feel very nice. So I don't go after the readers what they want. I write because the whole process is so enjoyable for me. From the beginning, I have that, and I continue to do that. I don't please anyone. I like to write because the stories make me to write.
What is your first book?
I used to write good essays in school and all, but actual book came in Kannada in 1979, From Beyond Atlantic, or Atlantica Dache in Kannada. I travelled on a backpack in 1979 in America.
Right.
Actually, today people will laugh at that book, I think, because so many people travel that way. But in those days, about 50 years back, it was a little bit unusual, you know, a lady travelling on a backpack all alone in America with the minimum money. So I wrote that book, and that is my first travelogue and my first book in Kannada. It is my first book in the whole list.
Right.
First title.
Yeah. Let's talk about one of your most recent books, Common Yet Uncommon. Quite an uncommon title. You have stories about characters where the title is derived from quality that the characters appear to possess. Like you have Jealous Janaki, Charmy the Charmer, which makes me wonder what inspires you to write. Interesting people or interesting incidents?
Depends on which book. For example, this is interesting people on this. I grew up in the northern part of Karnataka, which is so different than southern part. I am sure every state will have some 2-3 parts like this. Their language is common, but their dialect will be different, their food habits are different, and this is how I consider a characteristic of the area. For example, river Tungabhadra divides Karnataka into 2 parts. I belong to northern part. We are between Maharashtra and Karnataka. Our language is Kannada, but our culture is entirely different from the other side of the Karnataka. So we lived with many emperors in the history. We had Mughals, we had Adil Shahis, we had Peshwas, we had Vijayanagar Empire, then we had Britishers. So the culture of this region between Krishna and Tungabhadra is entirely different in their dialects, their food habits, their hospitality, and their characteristic. They are not diplomatic people. Diplomacy is not there at all. It is a very open society. What you feel, you talk about it. What you talk, you walk about that. So I grew up in a society where it is so easy to get along and simple life, and no politics, nothing talking ahead and diplomatic thing, nothing was there. That area influenced me a lot. What I am today, simple, straightforward. What is in my mind, I tell, I don't hide it. And many characters in that book actually influenced me when I was young. They may not be big, famous people. They never got any award. They were never recognized in the society, but they made a great impact in my mind. Starting from the conductor, the Bindu or something, to the ending, that is lunchbox Nalini. So each one character is like a pearl, okay, and Nalini is the thread. She goes in everybody's house. At the end, the necklace is made. So Nalini is myself actually. I grew up there as a kid, as a young woman, as an old woman at the end, and I know everybody's character, and that is what I enjoyed this book. Writing this book is depicting how a geographical difference makes a different culture.
Right, ma'am. Many of your stories and books are about human relationship. Even a story like Not Made for Each Other, about
human relation.
A perfectionist, a progressive Parvati, and a bumbling hardliner, Banabhat. It's a sad story about a couple who lead a loveless life. But more than that, it's sad because it's about misrecognition of love, or love not getting recognized. Why is it important to recognize love and to write about it?
See, every human being is an island. This is the way I look at it. Two human beings, if they want to be in a good terms or in a good relationship, then there should be a bridge. Okay? And both side people should attempt to cross the bridge. In that story, she has a different concept of love. Okay? And most women are like that. Their concept of love is when they meet, normally in my generation, when they talk to a man, maybe husband, father or brother, anyone, it is not that they have to give a solution. They have to listen to them. Okay? If I have difficulties, I expect someone should listen, not to give a solution. I will make my own solution. And most women want somebody, particularly the man in her life, should listen to her difficulties. And that doesn't happen there, because in his idea of life, love is like, a woman gets good money and whatever she wants, she never had any difficulties. So he said, I am looking after my wife. But what a wife wants, he never recognizes that. Many marriages, even today, it happens. That's the reason I say women are wired differently, men are wired differently. Whatever said and done, every woman has her own way of expression of love. Every man has a different way of expression of love, and when they meet and communicate to each other, then things will be much better than saying that my husband did not give that, and he thinking my wife is very happy. Both are mismatching. And there was no communication between Banabhatta and Parvati, and that's the reason it's a sad story. But inside, in their mind, they loved each other, and when she died within 24 hours, he dies. Very funny about this story is, one of my professor met me after many years. He said, Sudhaji, how did you know that my sister suffered like this? I said, come, I didn't understand, sir. He said, my sister was like Parvati, her husband was like Banbhat, and they led a life like that and they died like that. So did you know that my sister was suffering and he died within 24 hours. I said, sir, I did not know you had a sister. Then he said, there are many women, husband may not die in 24 hours, the many women who suffer, and it was a good lesson for them to understand men also love, but in a different way.
Right, ma'am. In fact, that brings me to the protagonist or the narrator of this anthology, Lunchbox Nalini, and she says these are not just lunch boxes, but the bridges between different people. Through your writings, I see you trying to build those bridges between generations, between people, between races, between warring genders. How do you go about building such bridges, book after book?
I will tell you, number one is I am a storyteller. Okay? Anything you ask me, I will make a story and tell you. Okay? These are the various reasons. Number one, I studied in a government school, a simple government school, and my teacher went on a maternity leave for 3 months. Her class was between 4 and 5. It was a history class. So she said, Sudha, you manage the class, because in government school it takes some time to get another teacher, substitute teacher, and this is about 60 years back, all carefree time in those days. And I was the shortest person in my class, and nobody would listen to me. So everybody would say, what is this, Choti, what's her name? She's so short, short is the words, we should listen. But I want to control the class because I was only 12, 13,
What is the word for Choti in Kannada?
Giddy.
Okay.
So I said Giddy, Giddy is class. Why have to bother? Then I realized I will tell a story, and story in history, okay, because my grandfather and my mother both were teachers, though I remember how they taught me. So I started telling them stories. So the first story I told is Rani Padmini of Chittorgarh, I remember. Then the Chetak, the horse, I remember the second one. Harun al-Rashid in Baghdad, okay. So I went on telling story along with history, and children even taller than me, they kept quiet and they listened to me, and this went on for 120, 140 days or something. At the end, when my real teacher came to give the lesson, students got bored because she would say, oh, 1336 Vijayanagar Empire was established, 1707 Aurangzeb died, 1680 Shivaji died, 1630 Shivaji was born, okay, 1818 Peshwas lost the war. If you give the dates and you go on telling, children get bored. Same thing, you convert into a story and tell as if you are part of the story. Children listen to that. And that time I realized the best way to tell anyone, convince anyone is always tell a story. So this storytelling became my art. And I was very fortunate to be born in certain age, because 30, 40 years back or in your time, when you want to read something non-fiction in English in your class, in a big city like Delhi or Mumbai or Pune or Bangalore, which were the non-fiction stories, story books, it was Enid Blyton. Enid Blyton will talk famous 5, they cross the river, they go to a forest, they go to a cave, they see something and come back. And in Indian scenario, such things do not happen. Hardly we have good rivers, hardly we cross, hardly our parents send with other 4, 5 boys to a cave, and all such things do not happen. So when I wrote story books for children, I occupied that vacuum area where you have an English writer writing in a simple way and connecting to Indian scenario. You go to your Nana Nani's house, grandparents' house, Nani will prepare some nice food, then you tell her to tell some stories, then she will tell some stories, and that stories are very useful to you. So every year you go to different place. So I occupied that vacuum, English authors writing for English audience or English readers, simple stories.
Right.
And I always used to think, my stories are so simple, you do not require a dictionary to read. But that became my advantage, that children can read without help of dictionary. Reading dictionary is always good, learning new language. But my vocabulary being limited, I write only in that. And that became very easy for the housewives, young children and old people to read without much difficulty or prayas.
In fact, ma'am, with that answer, you have anticipated my next 2 questions. The one question is about children's literature. There was a time not long ago when most of the writers, leading writers of the country, would pen a book or 2 for children, Tagore, Premchand. And now the trend has seemed to have ebbed. Why do you continue to write so prolifically for children, book after book?
There are 2, 3 reasons. Number one, about 50 years back, there was a joint family. So your Nana Nani or Dada Dadi will tell you stories. And mother is also not working, she will tell some stories. Today in a big city or even a tier 2 city, women are working. Women are having their career, they are working, they are well educated, they are ambitious, they want to do a career, and that's really remarkable. I really appreciate that. And husband is also working, and in-laws are not at home. They may be in Meerut, they may be in Guwahati, they may be in Karnataka, in Hubli, somewhere. So when children come home, who will look after them? There will be only an ayah or a helper or somebody. Now with this setup, there are certain advantages. Some disadvantages are they will never grow up with stories. Stories make you to imagine. For example, when I was young, there was no digital presence. So my grandfather would tell a shloka, how is Lord Vishnu or Krishna? I will ask him. He told me a shloka, Shamtakaram, Bhujagashayanam, Padmanabham, Suresham, Vishwadharam, Gaganasadrisham, Meghavarnam, Shubhangam. So I could imagine, he's tall, his eyes are beautiful, he has Padmacharana, and he is Neelamegha Shama. And there are many adjectives in the shloka. I could imagine, and when you imagine, there is no limit. Whereas I asked my daughter, you describe Krishna, how does he look? She described Nitish Bharadwaj. By that time she saw Mahabharata by B.R. Chopra. Okay? I asked my granddaughters, describe Krishna. They saw Saurabh Jain and they described him. When you see digitally something, your imagination is limited. It is actually curbed. You can't imagine more. For me, there is no limit. For me, there is limitless imagination. Because I grew up in that era where every story could help you to imagine more, provided if you have the talent to imagine. Okay, that is always underlined. So, I realized that children require to improve their imagination, not by digital. You should use computer and digital media as and when required, not always. I am from a computer background. I myself tell you must use Wikipedia, Google, everything as and when required. But reading is a must. Reading gives you to imagine. Imagine depending on your capacity. I felt I should write storybooks for children which will probably may not replace Nana Nani or Dada Dadi, but gives a solace to them to imagine, to learn. And again, if you tell children, Satyam Oda, Dharmam Chara, you should be like this, no, they think it is a moral class, they run away. Same morals I can tell them, preach them through a story. If you don't work hard, what happens? If you work hard, what happens? If you tell truth, what happens? If you don't tell truth, what happens? Every moral science lesson, I don't want to preach them, but I'll convert them to a story and tell them, once upon a time there was a king. The king and queen and fairy, they're all beautiful for children, okay, up to certain age. So, I write more and more for children because children require imagination, children require us to have good values, children require to read stories, and by that they pick up faster.
You also write a great deal about Indian culture and heritage, and one may argue that it's inevitable. You're writing in India and that will form the natural backdrop to most of your stories. But in your case, it appears to me that there is a meticulous design at work.
Yes, I design it. I purposely design it. Again, the same reason, 1680, 1630 you give, they won't understand. And again, the Indian culture, if you talk, they won't understand. Make it a story. Like I have two teenage novels, one is Magic of the Lost Story, Magic of the Lost Temple. There are two stories. I meticulously designed, and particularly a lost temple, there is a step well, a story of a step well. And it took 2.5 years for me to write, because I went and saw at least 18 step wells all over India. Okay, Nizamuddin, Agar Sen ki Bauli. Then I went Mahroli. Then I went Rani Niwao in Gujarat, Adlas Niwao in Gujarat, Abhaneri. Then I imagined that and I condensed and made it a story, architectural oriented story. I plan it. I always plan something about our temples, our architecture, our culture, some part of the story which should become not, just जोड़ना नहीं करते हैं हम, वो मालूम हो जाता है, वो seamlessly I will put it in such a way that it is a part of the story.
Let's talk a bit about your Kannada books too. You have written a great, in fact, you started writing in Kannada. It was only much later, you're talking about that, at the age of 52, that you published your first English book. Tell us about your Kannada books.
I used to write good essays when I was in school, but I started writing after 29, a book actually came at 29, and then I wrote Mahashweta. For the, every book I take some time to do research. Okay, I have a very funny way of writing. Any novel when I write in Kannada shorthand, because my mind thinks faster than my hands. I say in computer language, I/O devices are smaller, has less speed than my CPU. Okay, so I learned shorthand, and when I write in Kannada, I take pen and paper and write in a shorthand. When I write in English, I write on a computer. Okay, I grew up in Karnataka. I grew up in the Kannada family, and my relatives are in Karnataka. One of my students told me, I used to teach in college also. She told me, "You are very lucky. Are you aware of it?" I said, "How do you say that?" She said, "My ancestors are from today's Pakistan. My parents, they immigrated to Delhi, and we are Punjabis, grown up in Delhi. My parents always spoke in Hindi. I picked up Hindi. Then my father took a job in Bangalore. We moved to Bangalore, and I married a non-Punjabi, non-Kannada, some other South Indian boy. So what is my culture? It is not a Punjabi culture from Pakistan, not a Punjabi culture from Punjab, not a Delhi culture, not a Bangalore culture, some other culture at home. And I ended up sleeping, speaking always in English. So, and my relatives are all spread over all across the globe, Australia, England, America, etc. So I feel at times I lost in all these छोटा-छोटा टुकड़े में हम तो बांट गए हैं, लेकिन आपका जीवन ऐसा नहीं है. ऐसे हमारा ऐसा ही integrated है. I was born in Karnataka. I speak that language at home, married a Kannada man, live in Karnataka, my relatives are in Karnataka, and I am synonymous with all the customs of Karnataka. Now I realize it was a great boon to me. I can talk authentically on certain subject. But now globalization happens, so people are, scattered. So I started writing in Kannada, and I wrote Mahashweta, a novel which talks about the leukodorma.
Yes.
And I took 2 years to write, because I used to go and sit in the in the skin department and observe what people do there. Then I wrote Dollar Bahu, which became a TV serial also. It is how people go abroad, how they change, and how corresponding people change, okay, which is inevitable. Then I wrote Yashasvi, which is going to come now, this next year, The Circle of Life, I think. So many characters I derived from Karnataka, I wrote in Kannada. And once I was in office, and T.J.S. George, who was the editor of New Indian Express, sent me a word. He said, "Why can't you write columns in English?" I said, "Sir, I have never written in English." He said, "Sudha, language is a vehicle. You are a driver. You can drive any vehicle." I said, "Sir, one who drives scooter cannot drive car." He said, "One who can drive car can also drive scooter." Okay, it is not that way. It is more in the mind. So you write in English, and with your own simple English, and you are a storyteller. Write some incident, and I will try to see whether you can write a column. And then November 12th, year 2000, my first column came, and I have dedicated one book to George, because he made me what I am today, an English author. If you write in English, you have an advantage. The reach is large.
Right. And you have fashioned a new generation of readers in English.
Yeah, I think so. Because I was in Noida and Gurugram 2 days back, a day back, and I could see the children, their parents, their grandparents. They say, I'm with all three of them. It makes me very happy. They said my children were not reading. After reading your book, they are, they are clinging to that now. So I don't know whether I have changed or not, but that made me probably very popular, because I wrote in English, and it has been translated. Name a language in India: Urdu, Sindhi, Kashmiri, Dogri, Bengali, Hindi, Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, whatever language you say, my books are available in different, Gujarati, they are available actually. And funny thing is, I went to New York, and I went to a shop, Patel shop, to buy something, and I was looking at, my books were selling there. I looked at it. Then I went to South Africa. There I went to a grocery shop. There I saw my books. Then I went to England, and in one of those shops I saw my books, and I was looking at it. that person was Gujarati. He told me, Ben, खरीद लो, ये बहुत सरस छे. Ma'am, you buy this book. Sudha Murty के book बहुत सरस छे. I said, Sudha Murty books are very good. I said, thank you very much.
सरस छे.
I understand Gujarati. I said, thank you very much. You know, that is the popularity I realized when I went abroad, that in every Indian child would like to read. That is a great, garv ki baat hai. Not because I know it is a great thing about me. It is my readers are across the world, across the globe. I felt it very nice. And the second testimony my books are popular is, I was in Bombay on Churchgate area where second-hand books, pirated books are sold. Okay. Then I was standing there, one of my book was there. He told me, Madam ji, ye book खरीदो, Sudha Murty बहुत अच्छे लिखते हैं. I said, is it? How much it cost? He said it cost 100 rupees or something. I was wondering, how many titles of mine are available there. And I did not answer. After some time he said, ma'am, don't worry. 250 देना, 3 book दे सकते हैं. I said, my God, my books are pirated that way that author doesn't get money, publisher doesn't get credit. I said, okay, that's the way how people read.
But that's the magic of your books, ma'am.
So I don't know, but I enjoy doing that and people read. I'm happy about it.
Ma'am, you've earned a master's in computer science from IISc, and then you wrote a letter to Telco saying that why are you hiring only men? And then you became the first women employee for Telco, and you worked there for almost 8 years. And then you wrote a book about it. Tell us about that book, How to Beat the Boys.
How to Beat the Boys is not about joining Telco. Actually, I was in engineering college,
Right.
and in the year 1968 I joined.
So it's prelude to that.
And nobody would talk to me in engineering college. Boys never felt comfortable to talk to a only girl in the university, and they felt like a new animal has come to the zoo. Professors were not happy because they felt, why have a girl, headache, all those things. Everybody is uncomfortable because of my presence. And college thought, and the whole society used to think it is meant for, engineering is meant for boys and not for women. No lady can do that kind, And I was in a teenage, and people would always tell my father was a doctor, Doctor साहब, आपके लड़की को मालूम नहीं होता है, वो तो टीनेज लड़की है, वो बोलती है इंजीनियरिंग करने के लिए, लेकिन उसको मत भेजना, वो फेल हो जाती है, ये मर्दों का ज़माना है और मर्दों का फील्ड है, वो ये फीमेल लोगों का नहीं है, नहीं करना साहब, let her do a BA, get married after 20 years, why you want to do, you have 3 daughters. So a lot of people gave advice, उपदेश to my father without asking. Okay, my college felt that she won't stay here for longer duration. Why built a toilet for her? It's a waste. She will fail and she will go. It's a very difficult subject. How girls can pass? And nobody bothered. A girl can stay. The girl can study. So I said, no, I'm going to do it. I will not fail. I will pass. I worked very hard, neither to left nor to right. Next stress awesome, next stress awesome. That is a Latin word, neither to left nor to right. Concentrated only on that and worked very well. And nobody talked to me. I said, it doesn't matter. In 4 years, I did not make a single class. I did not miss because I knew I can't afford to miss. Nobody will help me. But in first semester, I got a first rank. That day, I laughed and laughed. I said, is it what मर्दों का काम है? अरे, it is not मर्दों का और male और female. किसी को शिक्षा चाहिए, किसी को उसका प्यास है, शिक्षा का प्यास है, किसी को लर्निंग का प्यास है, ज्ञान का प्यास है, उनको मिलता है डिग्री, उनको मिलता है नॉलेज. ये मेल और फीमेल सरस्वती नहीं डिफरेंस करते हैं, हम करते हैं. जेंडर डिफरेंस सरस्वती, माता सरस्वती कभी नहीं करती है. हम नॉलेज के प्यासी है, इसलिए हमको नॉलेज मिलता है. I laughed and said, when I can work and get a first rank, I can beat a boy. So how to beat boys? I wrote that one. And then boys also started asking me, Kulkarni, that was my maiden name, Kulkarni ji, aapka notes di dijiye. So that became a reverse. And they became my good friends after 4 years. So I learned a lot in those 4 years. One is I should be autonomous because I don't depend on anyone. Emotionally, physically, everything I'm autonomous. Even today, if I want anything, I will do myself. I don't ask anybody. That made me self-reliant, believing in myself. It also made me to understand you are your friend, you are your enemy, no one else. Atma hi atmano bandhur, atma hi ripu atmanah. You yourself are the best friend. आपका अच्छे दोस्त कौन है? हम है. आपके अच्छे एनिमी और शत्रु कौन है? हम है. इसीलिए आपका लाइफ आप संभालो, कोई ना वही संभालते हैं.
Ma'am, you not only read and write, but you have also pioneered a library movement in India, especially at a time when the reading culture is on the wane. Do you see these libraries transforming lives?
It transforms children's lives. Adults I do not know, because by the time you become 14, 15, you would like to have your iPad or your phone, and you would like to see cartoons, and your world will become different. But all parents want their children should read. They may not read, but their children should read. And that's the reason I have that catchment area of where parents want, grandparents want, children should read. So they read. I started a library movement only because I was very fond of reading, and my grandfather used to take me to library. And one day he told me, let me complete. We used to, we come from a middle class family, not a rich family. So we were competing with stanzas, poems, essays. He said, if you have wings, what you will do? The real poem is, I will go and fly to London and see the Queen. I will go to Himalayas and see the snow. All those things are there. I said, if I have wings, I will go to the neighboring library and read. And that made my grandfather to think. He said, Beta, you have a very unusual love for books. So when you have enough money, you should give books to one library at least. He told me, will you promise me? I said, fair enough. So he was 72 years, I was 12 years. So he put his hand here and I put my hand on that. हमें लगा हम तो छोटे थे, चलो करेंगे promise. But when I had enough money, I remembered, I promised him. I said, not one, I will give to many. So in the long range, I made 70,000 libraries.
70,000. How wonderful, ma'am. आज आप हमारे साथ जुड़ी, and perhaps now we can convincingly answer these two questions. Why shall I write and who shall I write for? आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद.
धन्यवाद.
Thank you, viewers. I'm sure you had a fruitful time soaking in all the wisdom that Sudha Murty ji shared with us, with a disarming honesty and uplifting candor. To watch our previous episode, check out the Likhawat playlist on Sansad TV's YouTube channel. Keep watching Sansad TV. I am your host, Gautam Chaube. Namaste.
संसद टीवी के और भी प्रोग्राम्स देखने के लिए सब्सक्राइब करें हमारा YouTube चैनल और हाँ, इन्हें लाइक और शेयर करना ना भूलें।